Hey Tribe, this is a special edition of Objectively Typed. I know I have not been on Objectively Typed in a long time. This is Evelyn, and two people have come in with my animal stacking. So NETE, play, consume, blast, sleep. And so I had to talk to them basically. so because I've had my type since like August 2018, and I was the only one of my 512 type, so definitely the only double masculine. And then Regi, I think you came in as audio, but you thought you were play, blast, consume, right?
Yeah, so that was actually the original typing I got.
Yeah.
So they switched it.
They switched it to play, consume. Yeah. And we were just talking about this, Amelie.
Yeah.
Okay. Or I don't know. You just got typed as play, consume, blast, right?
Yeah.
Like a week ago or something.
Thursday.
Maybe days ago. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And they weren't entirely sure about my middle animals, but since like 15 people in the community typed me, and the one consistent thing was consume over blast, I was like, okay, it's probably play, consume.
Yeah. And both of you have the MF modality, right? The audio. Yeah. Okay. And so I'm still the only double masculine.
Yeah. You're still unique.
I'm still a unique snowflake. So I'm just going to hold on to that. So yeah, I really just selfishly wanted to meet up with you guys, frankly, and just have like a coffee talk with you. I don't have like a agenda or anything. It's just been it's just been so long of being the only one of my type or even remotely of my type that it's been hard to like talk about triangulating and comparing with others. It's like, is this just me or is this my type? So I just thought it'd be super interesting to kind of get to know you guys.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I can imagine it must have been weird to go for such a long time not having any like close type twins.
Yeah, well, eventually you get used to it, you just kind of like, okay, there aren't any. And then you start to wear it as a badge of honor of like, yep, I'm hard or I'm hard to type. That was the thing. So when I got my type, it was back in 2018 and I had put in my video like around May-ish and then I didn't get typed till like August or whatever. And when I got my type, I do remember like scrolling through the doc of like, oh wait, I haven't seen this, and realizing that I was something different. So yeah, so I immediately called Shannon. I set up a phone call with Shannon. So I know you guys have done the phone call typing, right? Where you've talked to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the shocker for me was actually the lead NE. Like I didn't see any coming. So I'm kind of curious, I guess with Regi, so you said you did think you were ENFP.
Yeah. So I guess, and just to kind of add a little bit of structure to this, so it sounds like what you want us to kind of go through how we got our type and I guess how we feel about our type.
Yeah. And then any open discussion of like any questions we might have for each other. So like this is our time that
So I'm just saying like just to start with because
peace.
So I would say my typing journey, if you want to call it that, started a while before OP was out. It started like in like middle school, high school, you get like the college test. And I've honestly have always tested as ENFP or INFP. Like it's always been there. So the issue of like me being confused about my type was just me in denial, basically. I was like, this is not like, but it's like I kept testing that, and it was like across systems too.
Yeah.
So it's like I would test in I don't know if you know what's that one with the car model one.
Oh yeah, personality hacker.
Yeah, personality hacker. I had an ENFP for that one. There was like the one on like anyway, so it's like there's a bunch of different models. I would always test as ENFP, but like I would deny it. But I think when I first got my test, it was back last year, and I had a call, and that was when I was starting to be introduced to the jumper model.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is a bit closer.
Yeah.
Because but at the time they thought play, blast, consume, sleep, and I honestly think it was because I was peacocking during my videos because I did some videos, and I was like trying to be like super like extrovert for whatever reason. So, but yeah, so I would say since then I've had conversations with them recently, and one thing that they told me, which was very fascinating, was there's a few things. Dave and Shan apparently know you, Evelyn, really well.
Yeah.
And I was telling them about it. They're like, no, you remind me more of Evelyn than another ENFP, Kendrick, who's more of the Play Blast model. She was like, you remind me more of Evelyn than Kendrick. And one of the key pieces that they mentioned why they switched it was they were like, you seem to have a calm respect for the information throughout the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I wouldn't try to talk over Dave. I wasn't like, there were plenty of times where he would ask me and I was like, no, keep going. Like, it's like I kind of want to hear what you have to say.
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
So,
I've noticed that with you too. Yeah. Just in like the little bit that I've gotten to know you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I think where I'm at now is I feel very settled with my type. I've looked into the doc and I was actually noticing like even like facial similarities. I was like, okay, this makes sense. Like the cheekbones, like we all have the cheekbones.
Yeah.
Like David Goggins has the cheekbones and things like that. So it's like, okay, you know, this is where probably where it settles. And then also just behavior wise, I was like, okay, this probably makes more sense.
Yeah, that's interesting that they would flip it like that, if you will, you know.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I think Kendrick had the opposite because they thought he was play consume for a while and then they flipped it to play blast. Yeah. Hey Kendrick, sorry. This is I know Kendrick. He and I we talked on this channel and on his channel because when he was doing his interviews, I had my type, but he didn't yet have his, so he was just like straight ENFP, and then he did get his type as NETE, and so he came on my channel and we did something similar. Like if you're NETE, I'm like, hey, I want to talk to you. So I like freak out about NETs. Yeah. So tell us about yours. So you said it's okay if I say Amelie.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like got into typology like sometime last year, and it was just sort of like 16 personalities, you know, is where I started, and I got like INFP or INFJ on like all the quizzes. And I thought I was like INFP. I was like, sure, it makes sense. Then I found like ops, and then I started learning about it, and I was like, oh, I'm an IJ. I was like, yeah,
you went through
I'm
the
so
IJ
controlling.
Phase.
I'm so controlling. I'm such an IJ. Oh my God. And I thought I was like lead sleep or something for a while. But then I started posting some videos in Facebook and the Discord server, and people started saying like, oh, I think I see NE and like maybe like tribe over self as well and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what? But at some point, so many people kept saying it that I started looking into it. I was like, okay, if everyone's seeing it, they must be right. And then it did kind of start to really make sense to me. Even before I got my type from Shan, I was like, it really felt like, wait, so other people don't have this? You know, when I was learning about NE and stuff like that, I'm like, because first you just see yourself as the baseline. So you don't think you have NE, but then it's like, oh, wait, that is okay.
That is what that is, yeah.
Yeah, that is what that is. But what was funny is there was another guy in the Facebook group who thought he was NETE, and he got his type back like a few days before I had my call, and he got actually typed as SITE.
Oh.
So then I started questioning everything.
Interesting, yeah.
But just before I had my call, I was like, you know what? Of course I'm going to be an ENFP jumper. And then Shen was like, yeah, you're an ENFP jumper. I was like, okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It totally makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and all three of us have feminine NE at the top, right? I think so. Yeah. Because we all have masculine SI. And I think for me, that masculine SI is what I was sort of fixated on or saw. Because I'm masculine on the control. And so that's why for me, when I called up Shannon, I was like, explain the NE to me, because I didn't see that. I kind of thought, I went back and forth. I think where I had settled, the type that I thought I had was INTJ, because even when I was like a high schooler, I had tested as INTJ. And so like, I think the NT was pretty strong, and the control was like, I'm kind of crazy about the control, but it's not the same flavor. Oddly enough, funnily enough, I'm married to an INTJ. So Dave and Shannon have typed my husband, and so he's a legit INTJ. And yeah, like it's a different flavor. It definitely is. Yeah, and we're both masculine on our control, my husband and I. So you can kind of see the difference between masculine SI versus masculine NI. yeah, it makes for an interesting pairing.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that I'm curious to ping you guys on that I've always sort of personally struggled with my type as an EP is, there's this idea that EPs are like scattered and they can't, they can't maintain, motivation or discipline. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, first of all, we were all on time to this call. And like I said, like, even when we first joined, like all three of us, like we were all kind of like focused on like, how can, because Regi had like an issue with his tech at first. And so we're like, okay, how can we solve that issue? So I feel like our TE helps to, manage that. So I'm curious on what's your experience. So like Regi, what's been your experience with like discipline and things like that?
So how do I explain this? I would say, the way I would describe it is like, you're disciplined when it comes to the tribe, but not yourself.
Oh,
that's like the
yes.
simplest. That's the simplest way I can explain it. It's like if I have, let's say at work, I have a project that I know other people are relying on me on. All of a sudden, I'm like a control freak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I need this,
Yes.
and I'm bothering everybody. But when it comes to whether it's habits or more specifically like me going on my own life path, I will procrastinate on that, and I'll all of a sudden find all these different things to distract myself. I'll be on YouTube for X amount of time. So that's the way I would explain it.
Yeah, that's really good because we're all three sleep last too.
Yeah.
So it's that, and that's another sort of funny story about my typing journey is, I was getting typed and learning the system at the same time, and I was kind of comparing. I was asking my husband like, "What do you think?" And he was actually the one that said, "Yeah, that sleep animal, that's low for you." Like he was like, "You don't have that." And I was like, no, seriously, I'm so introspective, like you don't even know. And even Shan early on was like, "I don't think your sleep lasts." But yeah, like he could see that. And it's exactly what you're talking about, Regi, that like, I will be there for you, for the tribe. Like I will do for you. I will meet my commitments, I'll execute machine, but I don't take that time for in the same way for myself. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How about you, Amelie?
I have the exact same experience. This is part of why I thought that I was like OI savior. Is because, if I have like group projects or something, I just like, I will organize that and I will be on time with everything. And I expect it from other people too. When people are late, when people are flighty, when people like don't follow through, I get really, really like annoyed.
Yeah.
But then when left to my own devices, and I've seen this so much during the quarantine, is I am all over the place. I have such a hard time being disciplined, maintaining habits, maintaining focus. When it's only me involved, I just but when there's other people involved, it's like masculine SI.
Yeah.
And I guess just to build on that a little bit, like I think one of the reasons why, at least for myself, I think why play would still be above OI, because I've had that conversation with myself as well. It's like in my sleep and my blast burst. But I think what gives away the gather is you're taking on too many projects. That's what's going to give that away, as opposed to blast or sleep.
So true.
There is more that limitation of, okay, I'm going to organize this one thing, then I'm going to move on to the next thing. So that's more of the chapter orientation of the OI.
That's so true. Like if I could just soul snap that one, because that struggle of taking on a bunch of projects, I think that has been kind of like the struggle of my life, if you will, and being able to actually like stick with something and like build it over time. And the other difference between us, at least, is I'm the one with the masculine TE, and like, so with my feminine FI, like it will change. And I think like that's the struggle for me, is what I want actually moves very fluidly. So not only is it a demon, but it'll like shift and change. And so like even, at the start of this, I sort of mentioned I haven't been on Objectively Typed in a while. And like part of what I did was I went off to go do my own thing, kind of follow my FI. And even in that time frame, my FI has shifted and changed, but I've tried to keep it, like I'm still doing the Bright Star stuff, but like at first it was going to be like, I was going to do a life coach type thing. And then it was going to be this. And so I'm like, I have to like keep myself in a lane, or else,
Yeah.
I'll go off.
That's interesting. I never thought about, like, I mean, mathematically, I guess you could see that, but like, I never thought about feminine FI being that way.
Yeah.
And I guess this is just my experience, because like for me, where my tidal waves come is that my FI was always there.
Yeah.
I just ignored it.
Yeah.
So it's a different energy. It's like it doesn't move. It's just like it's like, this is gonna be very abstract, but I guess you guys were.
It's okay.
For that. Like,
yeah, we're all ENFPs. We're
so
fine.
So for me, the analogy that like comes to my mind a lot with this is the Jonah story, where it's like you already know what the call was. Like, you were supposed to go this direction, but you decided to go into the waters and go be distracted and all that stuff. And then the storms come and you know it's your fault. That's how I explain it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really deep. That's really cool. And that I know Kendrick has kind of said similar kind of stuff, like, because his FI is masculine too. Because like what you said about how your FI is always there, that has been the other thing with my type, that there are other jumpers, there are other EP jumpers, but most of them are SETE. And, you know, when I've talked to them, their FI is harder for them than it felt like it was for me. And I'm thinking it's because I'm pulling on my FI in that savior state with my NF consume, you know. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure why, but it always felt like, yeah, my FI is there. But in my case, it moves around. It's like trying to hold on to a stream of water. It's just like, I'm going to move over here. I don't want that anymore. Yeah, it's very fluid. So,
yeah.
I will say that, like, I mean, I like having masculine TE. It's been a huge benefit for me. And like, one of the things that I've done, to your point earlier about like not having the self-discipline, I think what I have done is I've kind of used my masculine TE to push myself to stay self-motivated, you know, letting that masculine TE, like turning things into a project, but it's like the project of me, if you will. So it's still a NT figure out puzzle, but it's myself. And that helps. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting, because like I feel like if I were to try to do that, it wouldn't really, because like the NE and the TE are just so feminine, just like want to fly around all the time. So if I want to like discipline myself, I actually have to go into that SI and FI and wire them together, which is the hardest thing. So
you guys, you have double masculine sleep then.
So the introverted world is a very shovey,
solid. Yeah, my husband has that double masculine sleep. That is, like you said, the internal world is very shovey. Yeah.
Whereas for you, it would be the blast.
And it is. Yeah. And so a lot of people who see me, they think, oh, your blast it has to be a savior. Like, your blast is so strong. And it's like, well, no, it's double masculine ST blast. Like, it is. I have got to get something done. So in the real world. So yeah, that double masculine ST blast, I think, is what has pushed me to keep my self-discipline going. But when it comes to where I struggle, it is the sort of softer, you know, more feminine, more emotional parts, right? Like I can maintain a fitness routine like nobody's business, but keeping up a journaling routine or something, like actually like going in and processing my deep emotional state, I'll just ignore it. And it's not a fear of it either. That's the other thing. It's like an out prioritization, kind of like you were saying, Regi. Like, it's not that I don't want to or don't see the value in it. It's just that in the moment, there's something better to do, you know? Or I think it's better. It's not.
So I'm actually very curious about this. So I know I'm probably hijacking the conversation, but
nope.
Like, I was very, like, I've been very fixated on sleep processing recently, especially now that, like, I've settled into my type and I'm like, okay, this, like, because for me, logically, it's like, okay, if the missing animal is where most of the tidal waves are, you should be spending most of your time there, if possible.
Peace.
Right?
Yep.
So, like,
totally agree. Yeah.
Like, but I think one of the biggest things for me was, number one, I didn't, like, it was almost like as if my NT was clouding me, because I was like, well, I don't really know how it works even. I don't even know what sleep processing is, right?
Yes.
And then also, like, how do you do sleep processing in a, like, and this is where TE comes in as well. It's like, how do you do sleep processing in a productive way as
Yeah.
well? Because as opposed to just like reminiscing on stuff, it's like, how do you actually use this to then move?
Yeah.
Right. Which is where I'm stuck. It's like, because I'm in a place where my FI is clearly like, it's not in a good place right now, and it's like I clearly need to fix that, or kind of get it to move somewhere else. But it's like I don't really know how to do that without getting like caught there at the same time.
Yeah.
So I was very curious to see how you guys sleep process. I'm also interested in the difference between how you like how Evelyn sleep processes with like feminine FI, and then Amelie does it with masculine FI, and then like how you guys are attacking that, pretty much.
Yeah, Amelie, I'll let you go.
See, this is something I've also been thinking about, because I've only had my type for a couple days, and
so a couple days. What do you tell us? Explain it. No, I'm just kidding.
I often thought that I was sleep processing, but I was just sort of doing the NT playing in my head a lot, but the advice that Shan gave me is to, just start journaling and then just looking back at it and pulling out the patterns from there to make a more sort of abstract identity, and sort of indirectly get to the SI through doing the NE, because I had what I realized is I couldn't sort of settle on my FI and sleep process, because there's so many NE possibilities of, but I could interpret it this way, I could interpret it this way, I could be this, I could be that, I could be this. And so when you have that masculine SI of I see my videos or my journals and the things that are consistent, and then you can pull out the patterns from that and sort of use that to build an identity.
Okay, so
that is the advice she gave me. Yeah.
Real quick, I mean, and this is where anyway, I don't even know what that means, in the sense of what does it mean to build an identity or to abstract out an identity? That's where even for me, my mind will kind of short out, because I'm I don't even know when you say identity, what exactly are you talking about?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, and I've been practicing with this for a long time, because I've had my type for a while now. So I've done different things. She gave me a lot of the same advice that she's given you guys of the journaling. And that's sort of to me, the practice of the SI and the FI, wiring those two together. But then to your question of how can I then make that useful? Because we want growth, right? I mean, we want balance. So you don't want to just do it just reminisce or be in nostalgia. It's got to have something that builds for you. So I think for me, a couple things, and I'm struggling, by the way, I'm struggling with this too. And what I'm finding, it's about consistency, number one. You have to really stick with it, because I find that when I kind of get out of my sleep practicing, what'll happen is my actual physical sleep gets interrupted, and I will wake up in the middle of the night with problems or feelings and things that aren't resolved because I ignored them all day. So they come and visit me in the night. They literally will come and visit me in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
All of these, my fears, my anxieties. And so I think that's what you're getting at with building your identity, because if you're strong in what you believe and what you truly value, then those other, life is always going to kind of come in and try to push you around. But if it's no, I know that I am doing the right thing, or I know that I'm following my values, those things can't affect you as much. That's kind of how I've seen it play out. And so when I find myself in that middle of the night of for me, the narrative for me with my, and it could be demon feminine FI, I don't know, but is I didn't do a good enough job. That's that's the negative tape that plays in my head is you didn't do good enough. You're not good enough. You messed this up. You messed that up, So I have to, number one, remind myself of the actual sensory of okay, I did do these things, that people have not called me out and said that I didn't do them. I'm just making up a narrative in my head that says that I'm not good enough. And so then I have to get secure in what I truly value too. What do I really care about? And that's kind of what I've found as I've gone off to do the Bright Star stuff. Because initially it was like, okay, I'm going to do a YouTube channel and I'm going to have a blog and I'm going to have this and I want all these subscribers. But then it was like, wait, do I really value that? Like, do I value having thousands of views? No, but yet I was feeling bad about it because I've got this Demon SF popularity talking to me and saying, well, you know, you need to have thousands of views. Well, do I really, is that what I truly care about? So that's what I've kind of come back to is I need to keep, it's almost, I mean, SIFI sleep always feels a little bit silly because it's literally like, what do you value? What do you value?
Yeah.
What do you value? Like over and over, which shouldn't feel that hard, but it somehow does, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps you at all, but that's kind of what I'm seeing. And we're all sleep last here. So this is like the sleep last therapy talk group.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, like, so yeah, pretty much it sounds like you use sleep as an anchor, right? Like,
yeah, as an anchor
for your decision making. Because that makes sense to me intellectually. Is like, obviously I'm gonna have to like figure out how to pull that down into practice more so.
Well, and actually to that point about the sort of the intellectual versus the and I noticed this when I was doing a lot of my deep Buddhist studies in my 20s, right? Like my Buddhist period was you hear the teachings and you kind of get them intellectually, but then there's this like experiential learning that has to happen that I think, especially for us with our SIFI, it's like we have to experience it to get it into that introverted mode, you know? And so there's always, to me, that's a natural progression of like, okay, I get it intellectually. I hear what you're saying. And then you kind of have to practice it out until you experience something. And then you're like, oh, okay, this is what that sort of academic idea was. I get it now, you know? Yeah. And so that's, by the way, and that's kind of the hard part about maintaining the motivation too, because it's all intellectual. It doesn't feel that real.
Yeah.
Whereas, when you're getting stuff done for a project, there's something real there. Like I finished a school project or I finished a thing at work. Like there's something to show for it. There's nothing to really show for inner work, unfortunately. Sorry.
I relate to that a lot. Because, you know, I've been also into like Buddhism stuff for a couple of years and just spent so much time just going in loops, figuring it out, puzzling it out and learning about more different philosophies and more this and sort of feeling like, oh, if I just keep on figuring it out, then eventually it'll fall into place. But what I realize now, you know, after my call with Shannon, some advice she gave me is that you just have to start doing it. Because what I want to do as well is go to my savers and empty, figure out, so what is sleep? What is identity? What exactly am I supposed to be doing? But you just have to start doing some like SI and just going, oh, I like this. Don't like that. I value this. I don't value that.
Yeah. And
just start doing it and then hope that eventually something will happen. But it's really hard to just do that.
Well, yeah. And the something I think is very, you know, our SF is very internal. So it's an inner something, you know, it's not you're not going to see something change like on the outside. You're not going to see it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I'm trying to think now. That's it. Now we're all just like, wow.
Wow.
Let's go into our sleep processing now. Oh man.
Now is not the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I don't know if that helps at all, Regi. And then I think it does kind of help if you've got, I have found that if you have a good confidant or a friend or something, so you can talk out these things too, because we have that high play. It helps me. I keep thinking that I don't need that. I keep thinking, you know what? No, I'm just going to figure this out myself. I'm going to just, you know, do my journaling. And then in the end, it's like, no, I do need to do it out loud, which is, it feels silly, but I think it's just something I got to do. I don't know.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll process that later.
Yeah, of course.
I guess I guess the one thing that I know was another kind of interest was just comparing notes.
Yeah.
How we experience things, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, what similar, and I guess we've been in, so there's an ENFP group chat as well that we've kind of started interacting with. I was very curious to see what similarities you've seen with like us as type twins, I saw the cheekbones immediately. I was like about it. Like, oh, okay. Like,
there go the cheekbones.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
With you, Regi, I could see your TE pretty quick. Because in that ENFP group chat, there's a bunch of FI saviors in there. Obviously like regular ENFPs, but when you came through, it was immediately like, oh, okay, there's another TE. I can just, I'm not even sure I could like verbalize it. It was just like
I can, like, it was very, and like, it honestly bothered me because I was like, okay, maybe I have to tone it down, right? Because, like, it was like, what would end up happening in this group chat, it's like, okay, you have a bunch of regular FI, like consume
ENFPs. Yeah.
They're like sharing, hey, I like this, I had this idea, it's really great, I love it. And I'm like,
but is it useful?
It's like, does this even make sense? Like, why are we talking about this? Like, and that was actually one of the first moments where I was like, okay, like TE, like as much as I don't feel like I'm that logical, it's like I'm like on the spectrum, I clearly value that more.
Right.
I would keep going to that, and I noticed that like the emotion, like maybe this is my impression. It's like the emotional vibe would kind of get like bogged down because it's like I'm like trying to like attack and be like, look, like I don't understand yet, and that would kind of take away from the mood of like what they were trying to share. So that was like one of the first moments for me where I'm like, okay, like not only do I see the TE, I see why T in general would have a hard time socializing or in human interactions because it's too disrespectful of the emotional situation.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, Lindsay, you guys know Lindsay. I think her channel's like Lijo, Lindsay Johnson. She early on she said NTs suck at peopling.
Yeah.
It's like, yes. Yes, Lindsay. Yeah, totally. And I also think that what you describe really highlights the importance of the spectrum game, like looking at the spectrum and how we can't quite see ourselves clearly, because then when you're in this spectrum, you're like, oh, I'm sticking out over here and this is a different animal. But yeah. Oh, I've lost the thread now.
So the thread was what the similarities were.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, go ahead, Amelie.
Yeah, so I thought for quite a while that I might be Savior FI, but then, Stacy got typed NEFI, and I've been talking to her a lot over the past couple months, and now I've been talking to Peter a lot as well, also NEFI, and we get along so well, like the NE, like nice, but then their FI comes out, and I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, what is this? Yeah.
what is this?
Yeah.
And one of the greatest things about like in the Discord server as well is just there's a lot of TE people in there. It's just going in the voice chat and figuring stuff out logically. But then sometimes there'll be like a discussion and it's just like banging the blocks together, and then someone like feeling safer will be like, oh, well, I like this. And I'm just like, but does it make sense?
Well, and early on, you pointed out the difference between the TI too, right? Because TI is a different deal than us.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah, because I don't know. I have no idea why I thought, Amelie, why I thought you were any TI. Like, I just did. It was just in my head. So yeah, like, but you said you're not though, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you never thought you were TI.
Oh, no, I never thought I was TI. It's also because, I don't know if you know Prim.
Yeah.
He's like ENTP Nurture. He's also, we talk a lot. And when his TI, it's just, I'm just like, we're all like TEing together in the group. And then he just goes on, we call it the Prim train. He just goes on his, like, this is my NETI, what I figured out. It's wonderful. It's great. But it feels so alien to me because I'm like, not everyone is understanding this. So make it, it has to make sense to everyone. And he's just like, no, this is how I figured it out that it works. And I almost thought that maybe I wasn't lead intuitive because I was like, he's so much more NE than I am. Mm-hmm. But that's just because I'm always trying to make sure that everyone is understanding it. That like TE works for everyone. So then the NE seems a lot more toned down in conversation.
Yeah.
Is my experience.
Yeah. And then speaking of the commonalities or comparing notes, the other thing I've always wondered is life struggle wise? Like, what have your life struggles been? Because, you know, you hear about type and you hear about sleep last, and it's like, oh, they expend too much energy and then they don't leave any time for themselves. I've never fully related to that, but I mean, we kind of talked about this earlier in our conversation, that it's probably because I'm out getting stuff done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or NT in my head, kind of. Sorry, you guys are on either side for me, so I'm pointing, but but yeah, so what have your life struggles been?
Oh God.
Sorry, Reggie.
So,
Welcome to Evelyn's therapy hour.
No, this is a regular conversation for me.
Yeah.
So I would say, so life struggles.
And what does that mean to you too? You know what I mean? Like, even.
So I would say, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I kind of the point that you've been making is like, you know, we throw out these terms like identity and life struggle, but it's like, what does that even mean? Like, what would you experience as that? Yeah.
So I'm trying to tie it to experience instead of like trying to do the math, because it wouldn't be as real. So I would say my life struggles I at least recently have definitely been like, there's a lot of like emotional shit. Like I am not like and it'll come out in the weirdest of ways. Like it's like I'll have conversations and like I'll just know, like I'll notice, okay, there was a lot of pain there, right? Or there was a lot of like insecurity there, or like and I'm like, and it's been popping up more and more frequently.
Yeah.
And I think also it's been kind of spilling over into my like let's say non-social life. So it's like when it comes to productivity, it's like the emotions are starting to hijack the mission.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been experiencing at least recently, like, and it's actually getting very problematic.
Oh, no.
I would also say life struggles. I would say the one other major life struggle would be just I would describe it as that. Like it's like the emotions will end up hijacking what I was doing, right? From like on a micro perspective would be what I was describing right now. From a slightly larger perspective, it would be like, let's say for instance, like the jobs, like my job trajectory, like my career so far, or like the projects I've been in, where it's like I've noticed the pattern where I'll stay there anywhere between like 6 months and like a year. And then there'll come a point where it's like there'll be a switch that comes off, and like, all right, I gotta like,
this is not it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, and logically I'm like, no, this is it, but it's like it won't cooperate. So that would be how I would describe my life struggles. Oh, and then also this would be a good segue. Like I'll have life struggles of forgetting shit. So for example, I need to find my freaking charger. So,
yeah.
Oh my God.
You got your demon.
That happens as well.
Your demon sensory.
It's so annoying. I need this, like, it's gonna die like so fast. So you guys can keep talking.
Okay, we'll keep talking. Yeah. So, and then that's the other thing. So you and I, Amelie, are different in age, and I forget how old Reggie is. But so while he's looking for his charger,
24.
Okay, you're 24. So you both are younger than me. So I'm 36, right? So I've been around a little bit, and so that's why I was curious to ping you. To kind of compare of how I was at your age, you know? So tell me your life struggles at the tender age of what? You're like 21.
Yeah, I'm turning 21 soon.
Oh my God, you're turning 21. Good Lord. Oh my God, I'm so old. It'll sneak up on you, girl. Watch out.
I know. But I relate so much to what Reggie was saying, especially the like doing something for half a year and then it's just done, and once that switch flips, just can't turn it back. It gets stuck. It's just like, no, we're done here, we're leaving. And I
do think that's your masculine FI too, though, because that masculine, you're like, I got it.
It really gets this like masculine, like, no. And it's just, I've had it like, I'm at university now studying linguistics. Before this, I went to another university, and after like one semester, I started getting like this feeling of, oh my God, I'm trapped and this is horrible. But I was like, no, I need to keep going, just get this done, get my degree. But then in my second semester, I started getting like panic attacks because of it, because I just like couldn't. And then I ended up dropping out. And then I had like a total of 2 gap years in which I worked, and I had 5 jobs in those 2 years.
Yeah.
I just like, it starts and it's like, oh, this is amazing. There's a new challenge. There's stuff to learn, and working really hard, and just the sort of rush of excitement of a new job. And then after half a year, just some tiny little thing, it seemed that it would just flip and just out.
That's it. Yeah. You know, it's, as you guys described that, I think that might be it for me too, but but it's been different because of the feminine FI. I think it's not as sort of extreme. And so I'm able to like move to get to where my FI is trying to go. Cause when I was in college, so yeah, when I was your age, so my degree is in aerospace engineering, and like growing up, I wanted to be an astronaut, you know, and everybody encourages you when you're a young Black girl, and they're like, yeah, go be an engineer, you go do that. Right. So the tribe really pushed me. But like midway through the program, I was just like, I don't think I love this. Like, I don't think this is what I want to do, especially, like, for me, like the moment I just remember like the light bulb really kind of coming on to me that I didn't want to just be a straight engineer was when the Columbia broke up, the space shuttle, which you were probably like a tiny child. Like, I don't even know. But anyway, we lost the space shuttle in like 2005, 2004, something like that. And I was in college for aerospace engineering. And it just was like, I don't think this is really what I want. You know, I didn't have the FI language, but it was just that sort of same feeling that you guys were describing. But for me, because it's feminine, it was a much more sort of quiet voice, but it was strong. And what I ended up doing, and I think that's what I've been able to do, is like work with it. What I ended up doing was picking up a history minor because I loved history. And that sort of gave me an outlet for my FI as I finished my program. And I did finish it. And I did get into industry for it. But that's the other thing. Like, I was kind of talking to you, Regi, then saying like, in a way, my corporate job has been good for me because it's like, I got into Boeing, and initially I was a straight engineer, just like engineer. And I remember, a lot of these same feelings, especially early on in my career, of like, I don't want to do this. Like, and I even there's this, Boeing has a thing called employee assistance program where like there's like a counselor you can sit and talk to. And I talked to her and I was like, I'm in this career and I don't know if this is what I want to do. Like, I don't know what to do. I basically pinged the tribe, right? I was like, tribe, what do I do? Yeah. And I remember she told me, she was like, you've got a good job, go to school for something else that you like let the job pay for you to go do this other stuff. And so I started doing that. And so on the side, I would take like psychology classes or like nutrition classes, coaching. And I've just sort of always played that balance of like, I'm in this corporate job and I have moved around within that. And what I ended up doing was like moving my career to leadership. So these days I'm not an engineer anymore. So even though I've been working at the same company for 14 years, in that time, I have jumped around. I've had like, at one point I counted, it was like 5 jobs or something, 5 or 6 positions within the company, but have kind of moved my way around into the management role, which, you know, has its downsides, of course. But for me, it's like, that's a good spot for me because my days aren't really just, prescribed or anything. Like, I show up at work in the beginning of a week, not necessarily knowing what the heck I'm going to do. Right. Like I don't have like a regular job or anything. I'm sometimes I joke with my team that I'm like a free safety. Like, my job is to run around and block and make sure that we can do our job. And I like that. It gives me that sense of freedom but also that sense of security. Oh, which I guess brings up another question I have for you guys. Because I am notoriously risk averse. Like, Kendrick and I have talked about this a lot.
Same.
Okay, so you are, but Regi, I don't think you are. I don't know. Like, what I mean by risk averse, just so I can, to clarify what I mean by that, is I do not make large, impulsive decisions. So when I graduated from college, I didn't have a job right out, but I just stayed in my I went to Ohio State. I stayed in Columbus. I had a little job there. I had a degree in aerospace engineering, and I was working at a coffee shop. And then I got the offer, and that was the only time I was going to move. Like, I had a nice job offer with a good salary. Then I moved, and we were same way with kids. Like, we didn't have kids until we were 100% 1000% ready to have kids.
Mhm.
So like I've always been that way. Like, so I'm kind of curious.
So yeah, so for sure. So I did want to kind of finish up the thought we had before.
Yeah, go
But
ahead.
it actually will transition pretty well.
Yeah.
So when it comes to this kind of experience that I guess Amelie and I are having, where it's like there's this jumping period. One thing that Dave said recently that like really has settled me was actually two things. So the first thing he said was like, in some sense, that's what you're supposed to do in your 20s, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to play the EP in your 20s. He kept saying that. He's like, look, like
Yeah.
you don't build in like your teens or your 20s without like knowing like
The
where
landscape.
and what your FI
Mhm.
is aligned with.
Mhm.
So he was like, yeah, it's like he actually recommended it's like, okay, like for me at least, he recommended for me, it's like only commit at least in your mind to jobs 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Only do that, and then it's like then you can reevaluate it and see, okay, are you staying here for another 6 months? Or are you gonna jump out? And it's like there's no shame in jumping out, because the goal is you're using them as more so apprenticeships to build
Yeah.
skills, as opposed to, oh, like I'm on a certain career path and I kind of betrayed that.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
kind of the first thing that's really helped. I think the second major thing related to that was it was more along the lines of like I forget like the sensory on this, but it's more along the lines of like your FI. I think with masculine FI, it's like you said, it's a stronger shove.
Yeah.
So you have to. No, Dave has not said this. This is actually something I've been kind of working with myself. It's like you have to embrace that like the FI is the elephant and you're like the tiny little like rider. So I don't know if you know that analogy.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
think Jonathan Haidt uses it a lot, like the rider and the elephant. It's like the elephant in this analogy is like your subconscious, your emotional, your the like the animalistic instincts. And the point of the analogy is that it's just like pound for pound much more powerful than the intellect or the conscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, even though the conscious mind feels like it should be in control,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, what's been helping as well is just kind of recognizing, okay, like I have to respect the force of that animal, of the FI. And then it's like, for me, it's like, okay, instead of fighting it, I have to somehow figure out a way to like either get it on board with the direction I want to go, or like honestly, sometimes I have to surrender to where it wants to go. Because it's like
Yeah.
if you have an elephant that's hungry, it's not going anywhere until it eats, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like, okay, like I have to kind of give it its space and give it the respect given the power that it has.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, totally.
those were kind of the two things. So I would say jumping into what you were talking about, which was more so like the risk aversion. I think it's a paradox for me, but I think it's explained quite simply. I'm actually very risk averse until my FI snaps.
Mm.
Right? So like for me, for example, my first job, it was a very corporate job, like very comfortable, like the cost of living in that area was very low. So it's like I could afford it. The tribe was on board with it, everyone was on board with it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna probably stay here for 2-3 years. Like I had the conservative plan that I could stay for 2-3 years, either work my way up, move laterally or something like that. But around like 6 to 9 months, again, it's like the FI was like, no, you're not staying here. Like, it's like, and the force of it, like, I don't even know if I could describe, at least for myself, the force of that emotional decision. Like, it will like hijack everything. It's like, no, you're not actually gonna work anymore. Like, you need to figure out a way out now because we're not working anymore. That's actually how this is gonna go, right? So for me, it's like I've had very like I would say people would consider very risky decisions. Like I quit that job, I didn't have a job lined up. There's a point where I moved to San Francisco, I didn't have a job lined up over there. I didn't have a place to live. But it's like, no, we're not staying here anymore, right? Like So I've, so for me, it's like I've had plenty of experiences like that where the risk aversion, I think, is honestly, I wouldn't say it's the masculine SI, although it probably has a component of that. It's more so like the insecurity of my feminine saviors. It's like, well, I don't know where to go,
That's a good
so I might as well
point.
stay here until I
Yeah.
figure it out. But it's like, there's nothing
Yeah.
stable about that. So it's like, you're always kind of in the same place.
Yeah.
And then for me, like the FI, like really the FI, not even the SI, because the SI is on board with that. Like the FI kicks in, is like, no, we're going somewhere else.
Yeah, that's interesting. You cannot, I feel like anybody who ignores the masculine and feminine charge in this system is missing something. Because like that's a really great, that's a great insight. Because I think for me, it's because my ST is the double masculine, right? So it feels, I have a hard time sometimes teasing out which is the masculine TE and which is the masculine SI. That's sort of not letting me take these big jumps. And then I loved your analogy of the elephant as you were talking, because I think that's a really great point. And like my FI feels that same way, like a powerful creature that I'm writing, but mine sometimes feels like a dragon or something because it's like moving. And I don't know. I guess I just want to underline everything you're saying. And I will say, as sort of the elder here, that I think the culture is starting to shift to understand that 6 month cycle is a good one, especially for younger, newer career people. Because even me, like, I had an intern or whatever. I encouraged her to look around, right, and to find what, try this and try this. Like even in her internship, I kept trying to put her in touch with as many different people in that like 10 weeks as I possibly could, because that quicker cycle I think is better. In my day, with me they say like 18 months, like stay in a place for like 18 months and then talk about going. So anyways, what about you with the risk aversion, Amelie?
Yeah, I relate 100% to everything that Regi said. Where it's like I'm very risk averse in the sense that I'm sort of so aware of the risks and I don't want to take the risks, and I'm seeing all the things that could go wrong and blah blah blah. But then when that FI makes, it's the same thing I said before. It's a switch and then it gets stuck. It's a lever that just once it's down, you can't push it up again. And it's really like with the jobs that I've quit, it would be like after half a year, the FI just snaps. And then it's like it takes everything out of me at that point to even get myself out of bed to go to the job anymore. Because the FI is just like, no. And then you eventually have to make that jump. But for me, it's never been big risks before because I'm only 20. I've always, up until last year, I've always lived at my mom's house.
Yeah.
So I've never actually taken big risks, but I do definitely see that.
Yeah.
So what this sounds like to me actually is like, I think this is a symptom of like demon, like sleep last actually.
Yeah.
Because you're it's almost as if like the FI. So if I use the analogy of an animal, because I think it's a like that works for me. It's like if it's an animal and it's like you're pushing it in towards pain, right? Something it doesn't want, right? Like it's like you're pushing that every single day for 6 months with no break. Like eventually it's gonna just fully take control and take over, right? And so for me it's like I think what makes I guess this helps me as well. But it's like, so I think with this, the logical solution to that is you have to constantly like do micro check-ins with that FI.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like tiny ones. It's like, and I think the reason for that is because honestly, like even with the jobs I've quit, it's like when I look back, I'm like, my FI probably didn't hate the whole thing. It was probably like these things that kept happening that I allowed to keep happening, that it's just like, okay, well, you're not going to change it, so let's leave. But I think it's more like, okay, if you have those micro check-ins, and I think this is where the building element of sleep comes in, where it's like you build SI-related plans to deal with those, let's say, FI hits. I think the FI will have a longer endurance. So that's what I see right now.
Yeah, and or like you said, do those micro check-ins. And as Amelie said at the start, like make sure you're actually reviewing those, right? Because if you just are checking them in, you probably are not going back and always reviewing it. And so it'll kind of be like a warning light is what I'm thinking, there will be at least some indication before it snaps. Yeah, like you said, you're pushing this animal into pain. It's going to react first, it's going to show something first before it just snaps and takes off. So I think that's what you're trying to check in on, is like, where are those? And can I use my great TE function to like figure out my NTs to like figure out another path, which is sort of how I managed to get through that sort of thing. I think having feminine FI, it probably has higher pain tolerance, if you will. Like it'll move and adapt. It won't just break. It'll bend a lot longer. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll get this history minor, trying to feed you. Yeah, this sucks. You don't like it. Let's study Christian history for 5 years. And it worked. Like, who knew? Yeah. That's good stuff. So I just want to check in, since we're all TEs here. It is 8 a.m. my time. So I don't know what your timeline is like.
So I blocked off like 2 hours just because.
Yeah, I have plenty of time.
This is gonna go over. Like this is just how it works.
Yeah.
So. I have Dungeons and Dragons 2 hours from now, but I'm like basically I've done everything
prepared?
I need.
Okay, because you're the DM, prepared. Right? Yeah. So with Reggie, when you asked about like some of the commonalities, I
saw that immediately. Yeah. I was like, what is this Dungeons and Dragons? Like, y'all got so hype.
We got so hype.
Yeah, I don't relate.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I could tell. But what's funny is, like I said, I mean, I just got into it like in the last couple of years. Like after I had kids. So it was really kind of inconvenient, really, because having kids and playing Dungeons and Dragons doesn't really fit.
Yeah.
So yeah, like when I was 24, I probably would have been just like you, like, what the, what are we talking about? But yeah, so that's one thing, Amelie, I know you and I have in common is the D&D.
So I guess I was just curious, like because it wasn't just you guys, it was like most of the ENFPs in the chat. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is like
it like lit up. Yeah,
this is like a thing. So I was actually curious, like what you guys like about that, and whether there's like is it cognitive function related, or is it just like what is it?
I'll let Amelie go because you're a DM. So a DM, by the way, is a dungeon master. Yeah. So like if you get to the point where you are DMing a game, you love D&D. You don't just play D&D. You're now like running it and stuff. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. God, what do I like about D&D? For me, see, I was thinking about this. I think it's a very like anti-play kind of game. Really, it really is. It's just sort of like generating new ideas. What I really like as a DM, especially, is that I have sort of like the world is built, like sort of the masculine sensory is there. Like this exists in the fictional world.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then the story gets formed as you're playing through pingback with other people, and they're bringing in their ideas and then their ideas.
How though?
It's because, so how the game goes is like, I'll be like, for example, you walk into a room and you see a dwarf sitting at in the corner, and you see this and blah blah blah, and then the players, they just decide, okay, I want to go talk to the dwarf. And then we sort of just improvise in the moment, like, okay, what is this guy gonna say? And I tend to I know what information the players need to get from that conversation, but then what actually is being said, that just, it's like you're having a conversation, but you're just acting as a different character. Right. It's like improv theater almost.
So, D&D, I would call it like a storytelling game, kind of a game. It's not like, so I play a lot of tabletop games, and like a traditional game, like let's say, like I'm going to use an extreme example, but like Monopoly, right? There's like a board and you roll a dice and you move and you pick up stuff, right? D&D is much more free form. Like there really is, I mean, there is a board sort of, but it's created either by, there's like a module that is created, or maybe a DM has done it with a map and everything, but it's very free form. And so when you're coming into the experience, you don't know what the players are necessarily going to choose to do or not do. So a DM might have something in their mind of like, yeah, like you might have information that the players are supposed to get, but they choose not to talk to anybody, or they just talk to each other, or they pick a fight with a completely inappropriate person. You know?
Okay, that's interesting. So I guess, and I'm just jumping ahead here. Then, like, how many OIs do you see playing this game? Like in your experience?
Yeah, you probably have more experience than me.
I don't actually have that much experience, but I do have quite a bit of experience. In my group right now, there's a lead OI as a player. She has double activated OE though.
Yeah, we have an OI in our team, in our party right now too. So when I was doing the podcast with Versavia, we typed Matt Mercer, who's he runs a YouTube channel / kind of side business sort of thing called Critical Role, where he's the DM and you know, has players and everything. And like, we typed him because Dallas is a big Matt Mercer fan and had requested him for the podcast, and we both typed him as ENFP. And so there does seem to be an NE thing going on. And like, so Stephen Colbert, one of the videos I found for the podcast was Stephen Colbert and Matt Mercer playing D&D together. And Stephen Colbert, who's an INFP, typed by David Shannon, FINE, he was like OG D&D. Like he was talking about like the original D&D. So it's clearly been like a lifetime thing. So you do see a lot of NEs. Probably any SI, I think, would like it, because there is like the SI of the actual like world, like you said, but then the NE imagination of what actually occurs.
Yeah, and that can change constantly. It's just being generated as you're playing.
So how do you win the game though?
You don't really win it. You just make a story and
go through a story. Yeah, so the party's all working together generally. You know, I know there's some times where like party members will like fight each other, but like in general, it's like it's I think it was originally inspired by something like Lord of the Rings, right? Where it's like you've got this party that has a mission to go get the ring or whatever. And so you work your way through those problems, and sometimes you fail. Like sometimes you go up against a dragon or something like that and it kills everybody and you don't win.
But the party can win.
The party can win.
So it's like an RPG.
Yeah. No, it's exactly what it is.
It's a tabletop RPG.
Yeah, tabletop. I think it's kind of the original RPG. Before RPGs were a video game, you had D&D. People were playing D&D in like the 70s and stuff.
Okay, so I guess this is actually very interesting because like I'm like, I guess I'm observing myself having this conversation. It's like I'm using my cognitive functions in real time, because it's like I've never played D&D. Like none of my tribe members that at least I liked played D&D, right? Like, so it's like I would avoid that information, right? So it's like right now I'm kind of using my play functions to kind of get what's going on here. And like now it's somewhat interesting because like it's funny because it's like I'm connecting it. Like, so I definitely have been NLP'd by like advertising recently. So it's like I've been going on like a Final Fantasy VII remake like video binge.
Me too.
Right. So it's like I'm connecting it with that. I'm like, okay, if it's something like Final Fantasy, then I could see myself liking it somewhat. Although it like RPGs take long ass time, and I don't like that. So like, but it's like now I think I'm a bit more open to it just because I've connected it with something like my FI like cared about. So like I literally assumed like
in your SI history of like, okay, I can like contextualize this, because and that's the time sink is the killer for me too. You know, obviously with 2 kids and a full-time job and everything else I got. Speaking of too many projects, right? Like D&D kind of becomes one of your many projects. Because I mean, most game sessions are long, like 2-3 hours, 4 hours longer. Like it's a time sink for sure. And what got me into it, similar to what you're saying, like I had kind of a cultural understanding of it, but there's a podcast that the McElroy brothers did called The Adventure Zone. And I listened, like I was on maternity leave after my second kid. and I just like listened to the whole thing. And I think that helped me understand like, oh, this is how this game works. Like, that's kind of cool. I would like to get into it, but I have 2 small kids. Like, who's playing D&D? So yeah, so I'm pretty new to it myself too. Yeah. But yeah, Final Fantasy is a Japanese RPG. So yeah. Very similar actually. A lot of the mechanics and stuff. Yeah.
D&D is like an open world RPG video game, except that what the computer usually calculates, you do with dice and stats on a piece of paper or whatever. And yeah, it's like sort of the DM creates the world instead of having it already programmed on the video game.
Right. So okay, so like I guess what this sounds like to me is that like there is a place for OI there.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's like there probably are. Like I've never played this, but I'm just thinking like
yeah,
like there would probably be a place where like OI would probably really like being the DM because you're controlling the world in a sense.
Yeah.
Right. And so okay.
Yeah, and so yeah, we have an ISTJ playing with us right now, and she's really good at like she really understands all of her character abilities in like a very detailed way. Whereas me, I kind of NT figure it out as I go, like, oh, I'll do this and have this class, and then I don't really know what my stuff does, and I kind of play energy it out. But whereas she like did her research and like really understood line by line. And my husband, who I mentioned, is an INTJ, so he's lead NI. He likes it, but he's kind of funny because he'll like make up an entire, like, I think he would make a good DM because he like makes up an entire lore in his head outside of what the DM has done. So it's like this deep NI like vision. And then like he had we played once, he had a sword that like he had made this whole history for, like this NI like imagining, which the DM had nothing to do with. And I'm just like, I don't think that's your job. I think the DM is supposed to like set up the world.
Right.
So yeah.
So that's interesting. And like this is a huge any jump here. Like what this actually like reminds me of is like the difference in any and NI like learning. So one thing honestly that I've been insecure about is like with any just how much it jumps like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like whereas with NI or even like OI, I guess, is like there is more of that focused, I'm going to thoroughly understand this box before moving on to the other box. So I was actually curious, you know, how do you guys deal with that, or do you deal with that at all? Right? When it comes to this kind of how I guess I would describe it is like the surface level knowledge. Like, do you have areas where you've overcome that? If so, how? Or like how are you guys approaching that?
Yeah, I hear you on that one. Yeah. I think for me, especially like over the past, I'd say like 5 years, I've learned to kind of embrace it, that's just my learning style and that I'm okay with it. But yeah, like it certainly isn't, it can lead to issues too, because, and so like for me, the way I notice that it comes up in life is that, there are times when I sort of feel exposed that I didn't fully take in the deep information and background, and generally that's okay. And I'm able to kind of figure out my way in real time and like get whatever done that I need to get done, or however the case may be. But there are times when it's like, oh, you missed a key detail because you didn't really learn the material in that sort of deep way. So that, for me, it comes down to like a respect of the SI too. Like, like my, I have coworkers that are clearly like ESTJ, and I'm so in awe of their ability to balance their SI and their NE. Man, sometimes it's a superpower, but then other times it catches me, I guess. That's what I'm saying. Because I know that there are times where I'm glad I have it. Like, I remember I was training, because I've also, speaking of too many projects, I'm a certified trainer. And so I was training a group, and I could tell that the workout that I had planned and like researched was going to not really work for them. And so I just literally during our session figured out a new thing to do. And so that's cool. Like, I like that. because I didn't get stuck. Whereas I think if I had been stuck on my OI, I think it would have been worse because people would have either not, they would have gotten hurt or they wouldn't have liked my workout or, you know, whatever the case may be. So I feel like those are good times, but then there's also the bad times of like, yeah, you didn't really do the SI, did you? You know? Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I've also I'm trying to kind of embrace it a little bit, but also, you know, when I need to, because like, for example, now, because I'm literally studying linguistics, I'm forced to go deep into that. But even that is difficult because I constantly want to move on to the next thing. And I came in like, linguistics is so cool. And then after half a year, I'm like, oh, it's just linguistics again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, like you said, it can be a superpower. Like people have often said this to me. It's that like whatever sort of topic a conversation moves to, I'll be like, I'll probably have stopped by sometime and know something about it. But then it's like, it tends to people kind of get disappointed sometimes because like just last week, a couple of days ago, like someone was talking about like determinism and stuff like that, and I was like, oh well, you know, when you say like physical laws and cause and effect, you have like a problem because of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, quantum physics, blah blah blah. Okay, and then he was like, oh, let's talk about this. What do you think about this theory? And I'm like, listen, I gathered the concepts kind of, and then before I could dive deep enough to have an opinion, I moved on to the next thing. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's the downfall of it for sure. Yeah.
But it's like, I know Heisenberg's uncertainty principle exists. You probably wouldn't expect that, but I can't go further.
Right. Okay. So then I guess, do you guys have areas in your life where you're like, no, this is my IJ box and I've mastered this territory?
I feel like I've done different ones. I kind of go from thing to thing to thing. And so it depends on the moment too. That's the unfortunate thing because I actually will lose it. Like, you know, I've been jokingly mentioning my Zen Buddhist period, but like, no, I mean, I was like very serious student of Zen from like 23 to about 29 years old. So like, I mean, I studied the sutras. I did a lot of meditation retreats and, you know, even had gotten to the point where I was like leading meditation retreats and things like that. So I feel like that was kind of my IJ box for a chunk of time. And like you said, it's like I gathered the concepts that I sort of needed to out of that. And I remember as I was sort of transitioning out of it, I felt kind of some guilt too. Kind of, you guys were mentioning your FI of like, well, my FI moved. And for me, maybe because it's feminine, it was not as harsh. It was more of just a slight, subtle sort of guilt of like, yeah, I'm really not here. And I tend to stick with things maybe a little bit longer than I probably should out of that because it's not as strong. It's not a strong, like, no. So because of the tribe, like I would keep doing it even when I was sort of out of it. But I think that's an area, you know, people, nutrition was an area for me for a long time.
Okay. So if someone were to talk to you about Buddhism, you would be able to hold your own.
Yeah. I'm a little rusty because it's been a few years, but yeah, I mean, and in this case, like to my right here, I've got like a library of books too. So that one is, I could hold my own. And then if I forgot something, I could be like, I know this is the book for that or whatever. Nutrition used to be that. Yoga was that way for me for a while. I don't know what it is right now. Maybe typology. It's my IJ box.
Yeah
I relate to having like an IJ box for a while and then abandoning it and forgetting everything, and it's like, now it's gone.
It's like cycles.
And
I think for me, that's what I've come to accept, is that I do have these cycles that will come and they're going to go, and then they're going to come and they're going to go. And I'm okay with that. I think the problem I have sometimes, like you said, when somebody asks me about it, I don't know that I always have a great, answer. Yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, I've noticed, so I would say I definitely have like IJ boxes. But I honestly, like, one thing that's interesting is, you know, even after you cycle out, like, the IJ boxes for me is still there in my unconscious. Because if someone bring it back up, it's like, I'll spit out, like, it's like, like blast something, and I'm like, I don't know where that came from, but
Yeah.
I know this is accurate, so you might as well take this.
You might as
So
well
it's like,
take it. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like, I think with
Yeah, totally.
so I don't know what that is, but it's like, I definitely think that the IJ box, it's like it lives in your body almost. It's like
Mhm.
even if you move on intellectually, it's like you still know, like
Yeah.
it's still there.
Yeah,
Right? So,
yeah. What I've seen the difference between like us with Lido E versus the Lido I's is we have more of those, right? They have like one or two,
Yeah.
and that has like been the thing. Whereas we'll have like half a dozen at any
Yeah.
given time. So,
Like a couple of IJ compartments.
yeah, yeah. Whereas like they'll stick with something in their little IJ box. I mean, it depends on the IJ, but like, yeah, it's less. That's what it is. It's what it seems to me. Martial arts is another one. I could just keep going.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Yeah, actually, yeah, martial arts
Evelyn,
for
a
a long
lot of
time.
yours sound very SF. Like your IJ boxes literally sound like SF boxes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same for me.
SF and NF. SF and NF for me, because the Buddhist philosophy and like my history minor was like kind of a history / philosophy type thing, where I was studying like the history of religion. So it's like, yeah, it's very S. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. So then the FI is what's literally keeping you somewhere. That's helpful for me, because it's like, yeah, it's like if you're gonna master anything, your FI literally has to stay there.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of brings up another a life struggle for me, and so I'm curious you guys' experiences. So I just mentioned martial arts, and I got into martial arts when I was like 17 years old. I was in college. I did Taekwondo, and I did it all. I mean, I was very consistent, like never missed a belt test, nothing, all through college. But because of circumstances, I did not actually get a black belt. Partially my teacher kind of quit. Like there's reasons, but like that was like a shame for me for a long time, because I felt like I didn't finish it. And I felt like I was a jack of all trades, master of none, even though I had the skill. And even when I moved and I would like go to a new dojo or whatever and show what I knew, they would go, "Oh, when did you get your black belt?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have a black belt. Nobody ever gave it to me," you know? And so like, have you guys had that I guess we did talk about that, a jack of all trades feeling of like, yeah, that has been I've had to accept that in myself, basically.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it connects with what we were talking about before with like the IG boxes. Like, I guess for me, like, so yeah, I've definitely have that experience, where I've jumped into and out of a lot of boxes. So it's like I'll have like you guys have said, like that working understanding, but nothing deep. It honestly frustrates me. Like it does frustrate me a lot. And it's one of those things where I don't accept that, actually. Like I think it's one of those areas where I guess I don't think that that's how I should be living, actually. Like, I do think that, okay, sure, you can have like several different projects. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but you do need to have a path. And like you have to have like your thing. Like I even remember like when I was younger, it's like, so one of the many boxes I've jumped into and out of was fashion, right? And so I was very big into fashion for a little while. And it's like, but I remember distinctly, it's like, okay, like at the end of this, at the time at least, I was like, at the end of this, like I need to develop my style. And that's the goal, right? Mm-hmm. And that has always been like a common theme. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, at the end of the day, you need to have full mastery of it. And the sign of mastery is that you can express yourself completely through this box, or whatever that box ends up being.
Oh man, I feel you. That's how I felt about martial arts for a long time. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard of the concept of the multi-potentialite. Have you heard of that? So
like, was this like a Renaissance man or something?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. There's a TED talk, and I don't remember who actually gave the TED talk, but they talked about sort of the difference between a domain expert and a multi-potentialite, which is, kind of the Renaissance man of lots of different interests, lots of, Yeah. And again, like that's, for me, that's where I ended up landing, especially when it came to the more physical stuff. So like the martial arts and all that is just like, because I think for me, the reason why I didn't accept it for a long time is I needed the tribe to give me that validation, certification, you know, stamp of approval. Yeah, like a stamp of approval that said, yes, you did master it. As opposed to me owning that I did, you know, like, even though people they saw my abilities, like, so that was the thing, is like, I had stuck with it and was good. Like, I stuck with it longer than a lot of black belts had. Probably could beat them if if they would let me in the same class, kind of a thing. And so I was looking for that external validation. I was looking for the tribe to give me the thing. And it's nice being married to an IJ jumper who's, Savior FI, telling me, no, you don't need the tribe.
Yeah.
You don't need that. You know what you learned. You have it. And so I still carry that today, like, that sort of trusting in myself, of my own abilities, if you will, and not needing to, like, it's almost like peacocking. I don't know, but it's like needing the tribe to give me a validation. Yeah. Yeah. And so it varies on the things, right? Like, not everything can you do that with, but I hear you, because I also feel like I need to build something, because at the end of the day, when I die, what's it going to be?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I have the same, I feel like I want to try and find a balance where I can actually build something so that, when I died, there is like something that I have built, but also like still allow myself to flow with that kind of, that OE kind of, because you can never really get rid of it. And I think it's also, as much as it can be a pain, it can also really be a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wonder, it's like, so yeah, I guess that is an important similarity, because I also have, and it's interesting how we're describing it as well, because we're also saying, like, we want to build something physically that lasts in time. I've literally described it that way before.
Yes.
So that's also very interesting. So like,
masculine SI. Our sensory is masculine.
Like, I would say probably the Renaissance man, like Leonardo da Vinci, seems to be like the OE, like the positive OE.
Yeah,
like,
he's the patron saint of the OE.
Like, I think, and that's probably one, like, I have to think about that on my own, but it's like I kind of have to come to terms with that's going to be my path. Where for him, there were a lot of unfinished projects. Like, he's very famous for that, where he would not finish a project, but like the quality of the project was so good, it was, even if it wasn't complete, it was worth like sticking around, like, and it still influenced the world. So I think with that, Leonardo da Vinci is probably like one major archetype. Like, I think of, I don't know about Robert Greene so much. I know he has the same, like, he has ME as well. He's consumed sleep though, but like, probably, like, I guess like Peterson and Robert Greene are also maybe some good examples of, like, I think Peterson
an unexpected one possibly is Jim Henson. So Jim Henson is our double feminine type twin. And when you think about, he built something that has lasted. The Muppets, they continue on, and Sesame Street has become like a foundation of like children's television, and it completely outlasted him. I think for me, Jim Henson in my doc has always been a cautionary tale, because I don't know how much you guys know about how he died, but I mean, he had basically strep throat and just didn't go to the doctor because he was so focused on his NT, like figuring out his projects and things, that he ignored the physical. He kind of demon sleep. Like, it was like a demon sleep type of situation where he wasn't paying attention to his SI and died when he didn't need to, really.
Yeah.
But I think of him too. When I look at my doc, I think about
same.
Good old Jim, because it's still and the way that he got into that was like so random, if you will. Like, he just sort of got this job at like a variety show, and then he built these Muppets. This is like the thing, And I think the other thing, you guys are in your 20s, it may come to you, because I'm starting to, in my mid 30s, I think I'm starting to find what the thing will be. And it was, for me, it came out of some really hard times that I went through in my early 30s. So like I wouldn't have expected that it was going to be that at all. Because I think I'm sure I've shared it. But so my brother and my mother died like back to back, just crazy. Both of them, totally unexpected. My brother was 37. He had a stroke. He passed away. And then 18 months later, my mother had an aortic dissection and she passed away. And I feel like going through that experience, for me, and being able to come out the other side and talk about it, that I think that's going to be my thing,
Yeah.
I've been trying to work on a book about it, and it is hard. It's like hard to stick on a project like that. But I'm like, I think that this is the value that I can bring to the world of like, how do you go through grief? How do you be better coming out of like really, really hard, tragic things, So it's that FI too, like those deep feelings. I feel like that's sort of my treasure, is that going over my known information and how I feel about it. So because this book that I'm writing is very SI-FI sleep kind of like, it's like I'm telling you about the experience and what I value out of it. And so earlier you were saying like that's what we should be spending our time on, and yeah, I think so. I think that's for me what I have to bring up to actually build something that lasts. Yeah. Yep. But I wouldn't have expected it. I didn't,
Yeah.
So
yeah. I also kind of have this just sense of, I'm really young and I'm supposed to just be kind of exploring. And I know that life's going to kick my ass a couple times, and then hopefully I'll be able to make something out of that.
Something out of the ass kickings. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and what you said earlier about going those 6-month cycles, like something will hit. Something will hit. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways. Not to like bring everything down. Now our energy, we're like, go back into sleep processing.
Like anything else that was like?
I don't think so. I think we've kind of covered a lot. I think, like you said, we got to go back and process, and I'm sure more will come up. But no, this was great, actually. Yeah. Anything else from anybody? Any questions or anything?
God.
Cool. We've managed to tap out our NETE, which is saying something. Yeah.
I'll probably like come bunk on you guys' heads like after I've had some more time to process my type, because it's just been a couple days, but
that's true.
Yeah.
Well, and this conversation shows we're all clearly info dominant.
Yeah.
Because that has been the one coin that I've like wondered about for myself. Like, am I info? Am I energy? Is it sleep last? Is it sleep third? But no, like once I get going, it's like, no, this is clearly an info dominant person, creature. But I conserve a lot of energy. But I think it is that NT, like figuring out what's the best way to do something,
Yeah.
Okay, so probably then, just to close it out, I was just curious. I know we're different ages and we have different life experiences, but it's like if there was something that you would want other people of our like type or even animal stack to kind of like either take away or just kind of like think about kind of moving forward.
That's a good one.
I feel like I'm on Lewis Howe's show and he's asking me my 3 truths.
Yeah, what are your 3 truths?
Tell them right now. Yeah.
What's the TE that we can actually give? Yeah. Wow. Oh man, I think, for me it is, because I'm the oldest and I've had my type the longest. I think what I have found is that we are lucky. We have a very balanced type. So, which is good, but just recognize that we still have a lot of good work that we need to do to like really maximize our potential. I think we have a lot of, I think all types have a lot of potential. I think that our animal stacking, just because of the way it is, we're kind of aware of it, but we just need to stick with it, like consistency, sticking with that inner work, and just know that we really can change the world. So that's what I would tell a person. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll second that.
Don't ignore you've got to get clear on that SIFI sleep. Yeah. Don't ignore it. Like I said, I feel like it is a balanced type. I mean, we're ENFPs, so we have like that, but we're like ENFPs with a side order of ESTJ sort of. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, how can you combine those two powers, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, well, cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank
appreciate
you.
It. Yeah, so we can end it here though. All right, thanks. So I'm sure we'll talk more. So anyway, thanks again. Bye.
Bye.